how should biblical Christians think about Israel? Psalm 22 calls people to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and seek her good, verses 6 and 9. Is Scripture calling us to be politically pro-Israel, as many interpret the psalm today, or is it teaching something else? This psalm is an ode to Jerusalem as the spiritual and political capital of God's Old Testament people. God placed his name on the city and symbolically sat enthroned above the ark. At least 3 times a year, Jewish men were to worship the Lord in the centrally located city. For these pilgrims, David provides a stirring song to help worshipers express the joy of going to give thanks to the name of the Lord or receive a judgment in a case too difficult for local judges, as he mentions in verse 5. So it was a great privilege for a pious Israelite to say, "Our feet have been standing within your gates, O Jerusalem." But for us to honor Psalm 122, we need to know that Jerusalem has always been a symbol of the people among whom God dwells. The physical city, of course, played an important role in God's redemptive work. But 1,000 years after David wrote Psalm 122, Jerusalem acted for the nation in rejecting Jesus, as John says in chapter 1, verse 11 of his gospel. So God would take from the Jews the vineyard and give it to others who would respect the Christ. That comes from a parable that Jesus told in Mark chapter 12. In the Old Covenant, Jerusalem was where God's people went to meet with him. But in the New Covenant, Jerusalem is the place from which God's people went to tell the world how to meet with God by trusting in Jesus. And so this psalm is not finally about Jerusalem or ethnic Israel. You should, of course, seek Jerusalem's good and pray for her citizens, just like you would do for all people. Paul says in 1 Timothy 2, verse 1, that as a priest of God, you should pray for all people. But Psalm 122 is principally about your relationship to the church of Jesus Christ. One commentator got to the point in saying this: what Jerusalem was to the Israelite, the church is to the Christian. To honor Psalm 122, you must go to church. You must pray for the church. You must seek the good of the church, and you must respect the judgments of the church, among other things. Psalm 122 is an ode not finally to Jerusalem, but to God's precious bride. Psalm 122, a song of ascents of David. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Our feet have been standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem built as a city that is bound firmly together, to which the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. Their thrones for judgment were set, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they be secure who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. For my brothers and companions' sake, I will say, peace be with you. For the sake of the house of the Lord, our God, I will seek your good.